Hello everyone, I'm here today with Michael Riccio. He is an Army veteran, an Iraq and Kuwait war veteran, 3 years over there. He has 13 years in law enforcement. He is running for the Florida House number 28. And why is he on My True Prison Stories channel? Because he is a former sergeant with the Florida Department of Corrections, and he is running for a political position. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you for
your page.
Thank you for your service in the military. Thank you for your service in law enforcement. I always love to see someone with a law enforcement military background running for a political position. In my opinion, I feel that they've been serving their country, putting their life on their line for their country, and now you want to do something for your community. I appreciate you working for your community and trying to make it better. Could you just give us a brief description? I introduced your military, but let us know how long you were in the military and how long in law enforcement again, please.
Well, I got 8 years of service in the Army. I was a combat medic. Was awarded a combat medic badge, and I cross-trained as to be a firefighter. So I'm actually Department of Defense certified for being a firefighter. When I was in Kuwait, there wasn't a lot to do, so I used to hang out at the fire station and ride in the trucks, and I got my certificates from IFSAC Pro Board and Department of Defense. I was an EMT. I also taught college. I also taught EMT for 2 years for Central Texas College, and I have, with corrections and law enforcement altogether, I have 13 years. I know what right looks like. I know what public safety should look like. I know what education should look like. And my biggest problem with politicians is they have an agenda and they have an idea of how they want it. I know what right's supposed to look like, and I know what it's like to be a common man. I know what it's like to be a government worker. And I think what I can do is I can combine all these things together. I don't have an agenda. I don't want to push. I don't want to tell you how to live your life. I want you to be able to live your life, and that's what the beauty of the United States is. The Constitution says you should live your life the way you want to, as long as you're obeying the rules.
Right.
If you're not a hazard to yourself, you're not a hazard to society, people shouldn't tell you how to live your life. Too many politicians, in my opinion, they want to push you to their agenda. You know, they want to tell you, well, you can own a gun, but you're restricted to own this kind of gun. I only want you to have this many bullets, or I only want you to use this gun for this. They tell you that the big push now is with firearms is it should be for hunting. Well, what's one of the biggest problems in the state of Florida? There's no land left to go hunting.
Right.
Why? Because the politicians parcel out all that land, and what do they do with it?
They make concrete jungles.
Sell it. So, so now you have problems. Now you got no place to go hunting. You got no place to enjoy the outdoors. You have no hobbies, and now you have problems with the animals. And then you have invasion of species like bears. There's a lot of things going on in this world that's caused by politicians because they have an agenda. And why do they have an agenda? They get money from they get money, and they push that agenda. They get money from builders. They get money from gun control. They get money from the abortion industry. They get money from doctors. They get money from unions. They get money from teacher unions. And why? Because they want to push an agenda, and the politicians push the agenda.
And in a few years, they're millionaires, and you wonder, how could you be a millionaire as a politician?
Easy. You know how they do it? They put money in their campaign accounts, and then they take money back out every time they get a donation. And then they're allowed to take their money, and you know what they're allowed to do with it? They're allowed to put it in interest-bearing accounts so they can use it again for their campaigns. So they get money from special interest groups, and that's how they end up being rich. And then they get special favors. They get free stuff. You know, drive my car for a year and tell everybody about how my car dealership is the best car dealership. Or, you know, here's a set of tires. No one's ever given me anything, and I have very few donations, and I'm completely self-funded. A few of my friends have given me money, and when I need a set of tires, you know, I buy them. You know, I don't have, you saw my car, it's a Subaru, it's an average man's car, it's a normal car. I don't have all kinds of stickers on my car. I'm not pushing an agenda. I'm not a race car. I don't have sponsors. You don't see me with, you know, eat at this restaurant, because I'm not selling myself. I'm not a rolling billboard.
And you're not putting in $300,000 for a campaign that's going to be an average man's salary.
$6,000. I got $6,000 in this. You know how much the position that the position I'm running for makes? $29,000 a year and $163 a day in when you go to Tallahassee.
$29,000 a year, and you've got $6,000 in, but you're a working man. You're a military man and law enforcement man. But one of your competitors, I won't mention his name here. This is you we're talking about. $300,000 per campaign for a $29,000 a year job. It really makes me wonder what the agenda is in the future for this person.
Well, they get money from builders, and they get special favors, and I mean that's more than my house is worth, $300,000.
Right.
They spend $17,000 on a commercial that tells you that they're an outsider. But the thing is, though, does that sound like an outsider or does that sound like an insider?
Sounds like an insider with future plans of making money.
Yeah.
So with that said, right there, let me ask you one question.
Mm-hmm.
Should you be elected? And let's get out there and vote, folks.
Vote.
What could you do for your community? Should you be elected in that position? I realize you're running for Florida House 28. You have certain things you can do and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do?
Well, first and foremost is when I get a complaint, I'm going to see what I can do for the complaint. And if I can't, I'm gonna direct the person and I'm gonna forward the complaint. One of my biggest gripes is the prison system. Have I invited a politician to the prison to actually tour the place? Absolutely. And they brag about it, but the funny thing is I actually work there, and I asked them to come look at the place. I know what right looks like. And are they doing right by the staff and by the inmates? Absolutely not. But that goes back to the agenda. Where do they get their money from?
Right.
Private prisons.
Right.
And the unions.
Right.
Now, I was always a member of the union, but I'm not a union man. I've never really thought the union did very much except for take my money and give it to politicians and push an agenda. They never really got me raises. They never really fought for me. And my friends that have gotten in trouble, well, they never really helped them out. I've watched too many good staff members get stepped on by the administration.
Right.
And, I've seen some good sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. They've lost their careers because they basically, stepped on, they jumped on a grenade to save the administrative staff. And will I allow that? No. I'll push it. I'll write letters. I'll go on writing campaigns. I'll go call, make phone calls. I'll audit. I'll film. I'll do whatever it takes. If you point out a problem to me, I'm not going to just say that's not a legislative matter. I'm actually going to take interest in it. I'm going to look to it, and I'm going to see what I can do. And if I can't, then I will push it to somebody that can.
Now, as a former military man myself,
yes,
and as a former 28.8 years corrections person,
yeah,
12 of those years as a Florida prison inspector, I can attest to what Mike is saying here. I've seen a lot of people turn in corruption, report corruption, and they end up being retaliated against, and it's very sad, and that has to change. But that's another day for another time and another
I'd
video.
like to do another video with you.
Yes, we actually are going to do another video on that topic alone. So I'm going to leave that alone there, yeah. But I just wanted to put that in to say that I'm agreeing with you,
yeah.
That, stop burying your head in the sand and pretending these things aren't happening in our prison system.
They are.
Okay.
They are.
Now my next question is, as a citizen, if I called you up and said, hey, we've got potholes galore on our street and you guys are doing nothing about it. Now that may not be something your office handles, but if you were elected, would you tell them that's not my area and stop, or what would you do to help that citizen?
Send me an email. I'll look it up myself and I'll forward it to who it is. One good thing about it when you're an elected official, and I've lived in my community since I was 8 years. I've lived in Seminole County since I was 8 years old. I went to high school with the Oviedo mayor. Am I afraid to go to meetings with the city council? Absolutely not. I'll go to the meetings with the city council. I'll bring that up. I'll address it. I'll send letters. If you, me, and everybody go on a letter writing campaign, eventually they're going to realize the citizens are upset. All we got to do is go to the city council meetings. Sometimes you have to report it to the right person, and they report it, and then things get taken care of. Do I want potholes? No, I don't want potholes in my road. Why? Because when I drive around, then I get bumps, and then I might ruin my car.
Well, the reason I asked that question, one of the biggest city and state issues is from people when you talk government: sidewalks, potholes, speeding on their roads. Those things will come out. That's why I mentioned that. I appreciate that answer.
Sidewalks important. You know why? My mom's disabled.
She's here right now with us.
Yeah, and she's disabled.
Hey, Mom, and I see that.
And you know, sidewalks.
And you're caring for your mother.
And sidewalks are important. Why? Because when somebody with a walker or somebody with a cane or somebody in a wheelchair tries to get down the road, and the sidewalk's blocked, or the sidewalk's damaged, or it's not properly marked. Blind people, American with disabilities is huge for sidewalks.
Right.
And we need safe places for them to walk. Nobody wants to push a baby stroller down the side of the road and have to go into traffic to get around a pothole or an area that's not properly marked off. You know, there's always a big joke about whenever you see a construction crew. What do you always see? You see one guy digging, and you have 5 guys supervising, right? And nothing ever seems to get done. Now I'll push for that because I definitely want to have sidewalks. I walk, I bicycle, I jog. I want someplace safe, and I want to be proud of my community. I want to be proud of where I live.
And I appreciate that because, you know, we have politicians seem to be promising the world to everybody, but what about these things we just discussed? The most important things to our citizens, you know, crime prevention on the street, sidewalks, potholes.
You ever notice that,
like that
during election years, criminal activity seems to change, or how it's taken care of seems to change?
Every election year, the criminal activity, the crime has gone down in my area, just out of the blue.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
But you see it, and it seems like the crime's kicked up, but nobody's going to jail because they don't want the politicians don't want to see unpopular.
Right.
I mean, how long have they let those riots go in the West Coast? 100 days, 110 days. They still got them going on. Why? Because it's an election year.
Right.
And you got politicians that actually go in line. Now, people have the right to assemble. People have the right to freedom of speech. But at what point do the citizens that are having their constitutional rights trampled by the protesters? At what point do they have rights? And the problem is the politicians don't want to appear rough. They're pandering.
And I'm sure these protests were picked right now at this time because it's
an election year,
presidential election year. You know, we know why they're occurring right now.
Yeah.
The ones of us who know why.
Yeah.
And don't
the politicians don't do anything about it.
And the politicians are standing back saying, "I need to get reelected. I don't want to interfere with it."
Electability,
Yeah. So
it's not a popularity contest. Sometimes someone has to be the adult in the room, and sometimes you have to say things that aren't popular. You know, politicians always promise you they're not going to raise their taxes, but if you want nice things, unfortunately, money has to come from somewhere. So either they got to sell municipal bonds, or they got to raise taxes, or they got to come up with some kind of way of generating, or they got to make fines for the people that are causing the damage. And if they don't do those things, then nothing gets fixed because there's not any money. You know, you can't print money, not at this level.
You can't.
Not at this level.
Now, if someone watches this today. Well, they will. We've already got several people have told me they're anxious to see it.
Yeah.
You have some folks in corrections that have been begging me to do this video with you. I've been wanting to do this video with you, and I wanted to kind of wait till a little bit closer to election time. I know the mail-in ballots have been mailed.
They're out.
But I wanted to get this a little closer to election time so people don't forget. But listen, if somebody sees this today and says, you know, I think I want my vote for this man in Seminole County.
House 28.
What's the date of the election?
It's November 4th.
November 4th, of course, the same date as the presidential election. You'll be on the ballot for Florida House 28. Michael
Riccio.
Riccio.
And the one thing special is about legislators in Florida is they're not limited to their one community. They can reach out and they can make phone calls. Sometimes a politician is just basically a noisy, angry uncle. And they can go to different prisons. There's a lot of different prisons in the areas. Tomoka, there's Lake, and there's CFRC. And I made a joke on Florida Cares that if I get elected, they're gonna swear to God I'm on shift. Why? I left the prison system because, well, I didn't like what I saw. And the people that were getting promoted, they didn't deserve to be promoted. And the inspectors.
He's sitting in my area now, but I'll tell you about that also.
Yeah, well, you know, I appreciate inspectors. There's some good inspectors out there. I get that, but who's controlling their agenda? And why aren't staff and inmates being prosecuted for crime? And I can tell you the reason why. It's because they don't want to increase the UCR, Uniform Crime Report, and they don't want to overburden the prosecutors in the area. Well, like in CFRC, for instance, in Orlando, that's that's Orange County. Their prosecutor doesn't like to prosecute people.
Right.
So therefore the crimes go unprocessed.
And a lot of the inspectors' hands have been tied since 2006. I left the Inspector General and went with the Polk County Sheriff's Office and did my last 13 years. Since 2006, when Secretary Crosby came in, the Inspector General's hands have been tied. You know, there was a day when we could investigate, turn it into the state attorney, and we would prosecute no matter who it was. And we'll get into that in the next video. We're going to talk about that.
Because if you don't have a threat of investigation or a threat of arrest, you're going to have criminal activity.
Right.
If people aren't afraid to go to jail,
the bad apples,
Yeah.
when they see that they got a good chance to get away with a crime, they're going to smuggle drugs into the prison. They're going to smuggle contraband because they're not seeing harsh punishment for those that have been caught.
Absolutely. And if somebody only makes $34,000 a year, but they're driving a $70,000 a year car or a jacked up truck, how do you justify? How do you explain that? How does somebody have a nice house and a nice car on you know, a $34,000 salary?
We used to have a joke about that as prison inspectors.
Yeah, you want
when
to
the officer had gold all over their neck and
They're
hands
guilty.
and a $60,000 vehicle, that did not mean they're guilty. You know, you're guilty when proven guilty, innocent until proven guilty. But it did set off something. And then when you see them hand dapping with the inmates, you know, like this, you know, red flag. But you know, you still have to have evidence. But we'll get into that in the next video. I want you to close. I can give you a minute or 2 minutes to close with your final statement on the vote November 4th for you.
My name is Michael Riccio. I'm running for Florida House 28. I have close to 21 years of government experience working at the city, the county, the state, and the federal level. I know what right looks like. I'm pro government worker, but I'm also pro citizen because I am a citizen, but I've also been a government employee. I know what right looks like and I know what wrong looks like. And sometimes people just need reminded to do their job. If you get into government service, it's not a free handout. It's not a free check. It requires you to work. It requires you to fulfill your obligations and your duties. Too often you see someone broke down on the side of the road and law enforcement officers just drive by. I've helped a lot of people. I've jump-started cars. I've towed people out of the mud. I've changed tires. I've done whatever I could in my community. Why? Because I know what it's like to be broke down on the side of the road. I know what it's like to call for help and not get any help. Sometimes government workers just need that reminder to do their job correctly. And I think I can be that reminder. I'm just an average person. I didn't put a lot of money in, and you're not going to see huge commercials. And I'm just a normal person. I've made mistakes in my life, and I've learned a lot from running for office, and I've learned a lot from people, and I've learned a lot with this COVID crisis. What the government can get away with if they don't have to do it to duty, they will. And well, I want to be the adult in the room and remind people how to do their job correctly. And there's a couple different things that could happen. If I lose, I could run again, or I could move another district that makes it more friendly to me, or I could just become a private citizen. I haven't decided yet. I know one thing though, I'm not going to stop being an advocate for officers, and I'm not going to stop being an advocate for the citizens because people need that reminder. And I'm also an advocate for the inmate population, because if the inmates are properly taken care of and they're happy, it reduces recidivism. We don't have continual lockups. We can save money. We can have better environment for the inmates. If we don't have programs for the inmates, if they go to prison, if they don't learn a trade, or they don't learn a skill set, or they don't get an education, what are they going to do, Gary?
They're going to get out and reoffend.
They're going to reoffend, and we don't need that. And drugs is a huge thing. We need to bring back drug education for school. We need to bring back DARE. We need to bring back sobriety checkpoints. We need to teach people drugs. And doctors need to be reminded that they don't need to give everybody an addictive medication, because what happens? How often have you seen some guy that was a working man? When I say working man, a roofer, a bricklayer, a concrete mixer guy, right? Or a street repairman.
Injured on the job.
And what does he do?
Gets to the doctor.
Gets prescription
The
medication.
doctor puts him on pain pills. And once he's healed and back to work, now he's hooked on the pain pills, and he becomes a pain pill junkie.
Absolutely. And then there's a likelihood that he's either going to get in a car accident, or he's going to get caught buying street drugs, or trying to get, pharmacy shopping or doctor shopping. Drugs are bad. People need to be reminded to do their job correctly, and we need to get some average, everyday citizens that don't have an agenda, people that aren't pushing for money. If somebody's spending way too much money on a campaign, why are they doing that? What are they getting out of it? All I'm saying is know your politicians, know who you're voting for, know what they stand for and what they're all about. For too long, I thought, oh, because there was an R behind somebody's name they were in my best interest, or they're a veteran. I've learned a lot about people. And I've met all the other candidates. And what did I learn? Some of them are good, some are bad. This is the first time I ever voted for an independent and voted for a couple Democrats. And the Democrats that I'm voting for, when I met them and talked to them, they weren't hardline agenda. They didn't push a hardline agenda. They were actually just normal people. Right. And I met some Republicans that I like, and then I don't know if you heard the expression rhino Republican in name only. Right. I've met some rhinos. And sometimes people need to be reminded to do their job correctly. But that's all I'm asking for, is everybody does their job correctly. Look into who you're voting for and get out there and vote. Nothing will ever change unless you do it yourself. You know, if you want a light bulb change, what do you got to do? You got to change the light bulb.
Change it yourself.
Change it yourself. If you don't get out there and if you don't like the way politicians doing things, start a letter writing campaign. Change it. Run yourself, or find a politician you back. Pass out flyers. Donate to them. Put signs in there. Put your sticker on your back of the car. If you don't do that, we're never going to have a change. And if we don't have a change, we're going to continue to just wallow. And nothing's ever. We're going to have potholes. Right. We're going to have drug addicts. We're going to continue to overwhelm our prison system. We're going to have crime everywhere, and then we're going to have people that aren't going to be functional in society. And when people get that stigma of being a former inmate, what happens? They can't get a job. Then what do?
Yep. Then they go to crime.
Okay, and then what? We overburden the jails?
Yeah, we overburden the jails, overcrowd the jails,
and
we're not helping anybody.
And we're not helping anybody.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want change, why don't we try something different and step in with people like Mike? He's not a politician. He really is sincere about helping. And if you want change and you want someone who will listen to you, vote for Mike Riccio on November 4th, please. Because if not, if you want to keep running with the same politicians over and over and over, then you'll be stuck in a rut, as I call it. And I want to thank you very much for talking today, being on my YouTube, and I'm going to wish you the best of luck. I know a lot of people that are going to vote for you, but we need to listen. People out there know what you're all about, and I hope that they get your message from today.
I just want to make things better, and I think the biggest problem with the prison system is they don't let the world know what's going on. And the one good thing about me is I've worked in all these positions, and I know what right looks like, and I just, I want to change. I want to make things better. Because if they don't get better, then it's just going to keep wallowing. Going to get in a rut. Anyway, thanks for your help.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.